Welcome to Hollers Hills, the podcast that takes you deep into the heart of East Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains. The tourism hub welcomes millions of visitors a year, but it's also home to generations rooted in its Hollers and Hills. Join us as we uncover centuries-old rural communities, share rich history, and explore landmarks and attractions old and new. Meet the passionate craftsmen, entrepreneurs, and community leaders dedicated to preserving this beautiful region for future generations. Get ready to pack your bags and create your own mountain memories. Hollers and Hills is sponsored by Compass Ventures, a leading developer in Sevier County, helping to navigate your next trip to the Smokies. Our Great Smoky Mountains exploration begins in the town of Sevierville, best known as Dolly Parton's hometown. The downtown is rich with history, charisma, and is beautifully restored with vibrant streetscapes and captivating artwork. In this episode, we learn about the revitalization efforts, relive history on a walking tour with the county historian, admire thoughtful artistic nods, and experience Appalachian cooking. Hello and welcome to Hollers and Hills. I'm your host, Beth Haynes, alongside Austin Williams, who is a leading developer here in Sevier County. He is also a community leader. How are you?
I'm doing great.
We're finally doing this.
Yeah, I'm excited to kick this off.
Yeah, this is so much fun. We're in the historic Pines Theater. It's known as the Pines. We're going to talk more about that in a moment, but you are fourth or fifth generation Sevier Countian. Do we know?
I think it's fifth generation. I know that when the park was created, our family moved right out of the Smoky Mountains. We're in the Greenbrier area, so this has been home for a year or two.
Yeah, it has. And if you can't tell by our accents, we are both local. We both grew up in East Tennessee. I grew up in Athens, Tennessee. You grew up in the mountains. I grew up visiting the mountains, but I have to say we never stopped by downtown Sevierville. Is that unusual?
No, that we hear that often. That's starting to change. There's a lot of things going on in downtown Sevierville nowadays, but yeah, for years there wasn't really a lot. But it's nice to see that tide starts to change, and folks that are coming through are stopping by.
You haven't been to Sevierville. I like to say that the downtown area really looks like a scene from a Hallmark movie. I mean, it's charming. How do you describe it to people when you say, hey, I'm from Sevierville? And they're like, oh, Sevierville. Where is Sevierville? What's it like?
Yeah, so Sevierville obviously is the base of the Smoky Mountains. Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg has a lot of the name brand if you go nationwide or even in our region. But Sevierville is really the bigger of the three cities. It is the base of the county seat. It's where our courthouse is at. It's where a lot of business is done. And it's the town that, the 16, 18 million people coming to town, they pass right by as they come in. But now they're starting to stop in. Yeah,
and you're a big part of that change. We'll talk more about the revitalization. But let's start with the Pines Theater. It really is one of the gems. It still continues to entertain, but it dates back, to the 1940s?
It was actually built initially as a mechanic shop, operated like that for a few years. The real rich part of the history, though, is when it turned into the Pines Theater. Uh-huh. It was about a 375-seat theater. There's a lot of country music history. Obviously, our queen here in Sevierville, Dolly, had her first paid show here. So that's our favorite part, of course. But you also have a lot of other country music history here. June Carter Cash and Kaz Walker and many other folks came to town and would play here in the Pines Theater.
Did they play in this actual room? Where was the theater?
Yeah, so the room was right behind you. This was actually an addition that we're sitting in.
Okay.
And so that room is where all the performances were at.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dolly's first paid gig. We want to show you a clip that archivist Bradley Reeves has shared with us. This is old footage capturing a very young Dolly Parton on stage here at the Pines Theater.
And little Dolly Parton will be over there with us Saturday night back up to the East Tennessee Jamboree at the Pines Theater in Sevierville. Right now, here is our youngest singing sensation here on the Kaz Walker program, little Dolly Parton. Dolly? What's you singing, Dolly?
I'm proud of you. Up there, the mountain. I'm
people all over the world, in fact, are just as hungry to know and see all things Dolly Parton. Has she seen the renovations here in the Pine?
She hasn't had the chance to yet. She is aware of the renovations, and we actually have a great quote that's from Dolly that talks about how proud she is of seeing it being revitalized and the new life that's here in it. Several months ago, we nearly had the opportunity to give her a tour of the space. It didn't work out for a few different reasons, but hopefully one day soon enough we'll get a chance to show her the Pine.
I mean, I can just see her over here playing duck pin bowling.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd have a blast here.
Yeah, game show night maybe. Do you have live performers? Maybe she could just come in and surprise everybody.
Yeah, we've had several live performers. There's all sorts of game nights. Trivia night I think is the night later this evening. So I'm sure she'd have a blast.
Yeah, and it really is impressive, the renovations here at the Pines. Did it sit empty for a couple of years? Kind of tell me the history of how it went from the theater to the entertainment hub that it is today.
It was a thrift shop in an office space. So really a use that doesn't amplify what we're trying to do here in downtown. It was an incredible process of doing a ton of demo to see what we had here in this space, which, like I said, beautiful brick. There's great old steel beams that are in the space next door.
Any surprises?
Not in this space. Not nearly as many surprises as we found in other buildings.
Okay.
But it was great to be able to find the brick. I mean, that was, I guess, really a great surprise.
And it really is a unique concept. Who came up with the design and the thought behind it to be? I think it's dubbed as the social corner here in town.
We're in the process of doing a boutique hotel right now here in downtown. And we'd went to visit a couple in Nashville to sort of learn from what they did, what we liked, what we didn't like. And in that process, there's a few concepts in Nashville that we thought were really neat that would be a nice addition to downtown Sevierville. So there's a lot of retro video games. There's the oversized Jenga. There is there's duck pin bowling. There's all sorts of old school board games that we've got that are sitting up front. There's a ton of different games that what we wanted to create was a space that would bring people together, have them put down their phones, that way they can talk, be together, have a drink in hand or an appetizer in hand, but spend time with each other instead of looking at our phones or looking at another screen. And so that's a lot of the vision behind the Pines.
Yeah, and then renovations just wrapped up here at the Pines. Is it now complete?
It is. Well, it is inside.
Okay.
So upstairs we just added a space that can host up to 100 people. It's great for class reunions or larger birthday parties or whatever it may be for groups that size. There is some outdoor space that we'll eventually add probably next spring or summer. But as far as inside the building, it is complete.
I want to talk more about just the revitalization as a whole. You've helped spearhead the renovation project. And I want to know why, for you, on a personal note, why was it important to you? Why renovate? Why revitalize downtown Sevierville?
For me, older generations, I heard about so many different memories, fond memories they had of when the community would come together. When they would come to the farmer's market or when they would come and get, their school clothes and shoes for the upcoming year, they would see, cousins and friends and just different folks within the community. And so you hear about all sorts of different stories, but my generation never saw that because growing up there was really nothing downtown.
Did you ever come downtown?
My family has a hardware store downtown, so I obviously growing up spent a lot of time there, but I came downtown for no other reason except for that. There were law offices and banks, which as a kid, why would you go to those? And I'm happy that they're downtown. That's important, but it's not something that's going to create those same fond memories. And so 10 years ago, the Downtown Association set out to find a way to create events and businesses and, find a way to create those same memories for the community and our visitors. I
mean, did it all start just around a table? You guys having lunch or something and saying, hey, it would be cool if we did this?
Yeah, and honestly, I wasn't even a part of that initial group. I know there were a few folks from the city, and then there were a few local or a few business owners and property owners here in downtown that got together and said, how can we revitalize downtown? I got invited after they'd been going for a few months, and I thought, well, yeah, I'd love to be a part of that because I've always wanted to see something in downtown. My wife and I love to go to an Asheville, Savannah, Charleston, downtown Knoxville, and go and spend time together in places like that, but we don't have that here in our hometown. And so I thought, well, if I could be a small part in helping to see that through, that'd be great.
And it was really important to the revitalization effort to hold true to history, and to really be mindful of ancestors and businesses, and just treasure that history and keep that top of mind as you recreate and reimagine buildings. The community actually dates back to the late 1700s, and historian Carol McMahon walks us back through history.
Sevier County was established as a county in 1794, but the white settlers started arriving here in the 1780s. And it was the rivers that the early settlers followed to get through this rugged territory. This is where it all started, Main Street, and it was the only street in town, literally, at that time. And that was true for pretty much the first century.
And then the reason you were saying Seasons is positioned here, and the entrance actually points towards the street because it faces the old downtown
This is
square.
where the old Central Hotel was built in the late 1800s, and it faced the courthouse around the courthouse square. And there were buildings all around it, and that was the center of commerce at that time. The fire in 1856 started at the courthouse and jail, and it spread all over the town, and 95% of the buildings in downtown Sevierville was destroyed in that fire, including most of the valuable county records at that time. But they built back, they were always resilient, and the fourth courthouse was built here at this spot, our beautiful courthouse that was built in 1896, that's become the landmark of the entire county. And once that happened, the town started shifting southward.
So many of the historic buildings that Carol McMahon pointed out are still standing. Some have been reimagined. Some continue to kind of hold true to businesses that were there before. Talk about what's there, what's new, and the concepts that people can see when they walk down the main streets of downtown Sevierville.
December of last year, when the Pines opened across the street, Pinchy's Lobster and Beer Company opened as well. It's sort of unique to have a seafood.
Lobster in Sevierville?
Yeah, a little unique. It's flown in daily, fresh, from up in the Northeast. That was a group that we were working to recruit that is really an expert in the world of the culinary scene here in the South. And so we were trying to recruit them for a different business concept they have. They tossed this idea out, and it does seem odd, but it fits, a high quality experience, something completely unique and authentic, right? You don't get Pinchy's Lobster and Beer Company anywhere else in the world. It's the only one, and it is great food, great service, and a great atmosphere. So it fits the downtown mold in that reason. I can't say that there's a lot of history behind lobster in downtown Sevierville, but the experience and the concept does.
Well, and that's just one food concept. If you're hungry and you visit downtown Sevierville, you're in luck because you've got burgers, barbecue, lobster. You've got like 5 or 6 different concepts within like 2 or 3 blocks of each other, right?
Yeah, it's great. There's so many good dining options. If you go on down Court Avenue, at the Central Hotel, you have Seasons 101. So that's a great farm-to-table restaurant that's right here in downtown. They also have a rooftop bar with a beautiful view of the Smokies. So that's there at the Central Hotel.
Something else I never thought I would see in downtown Sevierville.
Yeah, I think the same building actually has a speakeasy. So that building was originally the old Sevier County Bank.
Okay.
And they had a 2-story vault in the bank that was left when they were renovating it and turned it back into the Central Hotel. So, Central Hotel was a hotel that was here 100 years ago. The original building has since been torn down, but with that being the old bank building, the vault in there, the developer decided to leave it. And so the speakeasy will be in the vault, and there'll be an elevator between the first and the second floor, and so you can have a drink in downtown in a hidden vault, which is pretty neat.
That's cool.
If you go down Bruce Street, which is really where I would say the is where the revitalization effort started, because 5-6 years ago there was nothing on that street. So it's sort of the natural way that revitalization started. But there you've got the Appalachian, which is one of our restaurants we're obviously very proud of. It's been open almost 3 years now. David Rule, who has a lot of experience at Blackberry Farm and is just an incredible chef. That's a farm-to-table restaurant that he does an excellent job preparing dishes that change daily. Actually, our menu is printed every single day.
He's very creative, and I know he loves the challenge of coming up with a daily menu.
Yeah.
But we talk about holding true to your roots, and this is a really cool concept. It's open hearth cooking, and this was something that actually dates back to your grandmother, great-grandmother?
Yeah, so my grandmother wrote a book, and so she was part of the family that moved out of the Greenbrier area. And she wrote a book about what it was like growing up in Greenbrier, which is part of the national park now. You can still hike to where our old home place was, and actually our family does once a year, just to sort of commemorate where we came from, our roots. But she wrote a book that talks about some of the best meals that she can remember were being cooked over that open hearth. And so it's really neat now from my perspective. You know, it's a great grandmother who I never got to meet, but I get to read a book about her life and those memories, and now to see the Appalachian do that and serve what we believe is one of the best meals in the Smoky Mountain region, it's sort of a neat tie for us.
Chef David Rule has created something he calls the chef's table. We thought we could talk about it, but we thought it would be better to show you. So take a look.
So our chef's table is located right in our kitchen. The idea behind it is, one, to bring the guests in as a part of this crazy kitchen experience. The clientele that comes to Sevier County is a lot more cultured. They're looking for a little bit more in terms of a foodie scene. Welcome to the Appalachian. But what we do at the chef's table is very experimental. We love to invite guests in that don't really have a whole lot of expectations of what they're going to get served.
It's really cute.
Yeah, it is very cute. Yeah. This will get you into the fall season here. So I've got a little bit of a crazy menu. We're starting off with a small bite of seared pork belly with the last of this season's peaches. Real simple bite, but that's just something to kind of get the palate going for the guests.
It's going. My mouth's watering.
Oh, yeah. So for this next course, we're doing frog legs. Frog legs is always something that we love to challenge people with at the chef's table. So the way we serve them on our menu is buffalo with ranch. We say that's like frog legs with training wheels. This is the next step. We're pushing that a little bit tonight. So, yeah, exactly. We're coming out training wheels. Tonight we serve them very simply with some local honey, some sea salt, and black pepper. The honey and the cracked black pepper is one of my favorite combinations. It's simple, but delicious. But that's something that has been used throughout decades and centuries in Appalachia, but there's also a lot of French connections to the use of frog legs as well.
I want that. It's like, wow.
Hope y'all enjoy.
Thank you.
We take traditional Appalachian techniques, Appalachian ingredients, and we kind of play with them a little bit. But we can all tie it back to the story of what is traditional Appalachian. So these are Mayatakis. Hen of the Woods is another name for them. You can find them wild, especially in the fall season. But they have a very deep, savory flavor, white wine in it. All right, this is very much a little bit of an experimental dish. So we have these lamb sausage. This is farro. Farro is kind of an ancient grain, which is a whole wheat berry.
How do you know when you're hitting their taste buds just right?
You can tell by the look on their face. It usually hits them when you see their eyes light up, and that's what we're looking for. Just a little bit of that aha moment. Hope y'all enjoyed everything. I know that everything's a little bit of an experiment, and it maybe challenged your taste buds a little bit, but that's what we're here for.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unique flavors, truly unique to this area. But you also, if you want more of a casual feel, you have that to offer families too, because you do have a mix of people coming to downtown.
Absolutely. So just a couple doors down, you've got Trotter's Whole Hog Barbecue. So it's similar to the Appalachian. Everything's sourced locally, and it's a great meal for lunch or dinner. 2 doors down from that, you've got Gray's Burgers, which was really one of the first. It was the first restaurant to open up here in downtown that's still open at this point. And when the revitalization effort started, and Gray's has an excellent burger. They do excellent business, and it's a neat place as well. Downtown Sevierville now has that sort of that foodie scene I've heard a lot of people refer to us as, and so that's a great way to attract in our visitors that are coming to town. That just show up in downtown and you'll find a great place to eat.
And more food to come. Red's Cafe.
Yeah.
A nod, I guess a tribute to the old Red's Cafe. Is it still burgers? Is it still a lot of the soda fountain fare that it was known for?
I don't know the full menu. I haven't got to see that yet, but I do know that it's going to be that old school soda fountain feel. So I would imagine burgers, hot dogs, menu items like that, and then I believe they'll have ice cream as well, which will be great because we don't have an ice cream shop currently in downtown.
Well, and we want to tell you more about Red's Cafe. If you walk outside of the Appalachian and you look to your left, there is a beautiful mural, and it is a nod to Dolly and the gentleman named Red that opened Red's Cafe. And here's a little more about that story. Today it looks like just a brick building, but this was a happening place back in the days.
It was one of the locations of Red's Cafe, and it was the location where Dolly would frequent on a Saturday evening when she'd be performing at the Pines Theater later. And she loved Red's Cafes, as we all did, and she paid tribute to it at Dollywood with the Red's diner that she has up there. Red Clevenger was quite a character, and he was known for his hamburgers, but he never served French fries. But he was quite popular with it. There would be a line out the door on weekdays, so close to the courthouse where all the action was. And on Saturdays when there was a big crowd in town, it's a very, very busy place.
So the mural is really cool. You'll see a young child, blonde hair. That is obviously Dolly Parton at 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And Red is the gentleman that's serving her a hamburger over the soda counter.
That's right. So, certainly it's a mural that's about a business that was here in downtown years ago. It's a little bit of a nod to Dolly, which never hurts.
Uh-huh.
We've got a great video of her talking about downtown and memories. One of the first times she came to downtown with her dad to go to the dentist, that he took her to get a burger at Red's.
Uh-huh.
And, little things like that is really what makes it downtown.
That's just one of several murals that people will see when they come to downtown Sevierville. Talk about the streetscapes, the murals. Why was that important for you all to include?
One of the things that makes a downtown interesting is for the local heritage to shine through. And one of the best ways to do that is through art. And so we wanted to create murals that could tell downtown story. And I add a lot of color, right, in the pretty murals that you see. So our Downtown Association actually went through a process of, we put out a request for proposal. And about 50 artists came back with all sorts of ideas. Red's was one of those that came to fruition. Right outside of the Pines here, you've got 4 or 5 country music artists that are up on the wall on about a 20-foot tall mural. You've also got one called the Wings of Wonder that's across from the Appalachian. There's a parking lot there that it's a monarch butterfly.
I had no idea. I thought that was another nod to Dolly. I didn't realize that monarch butterflies actually migrate through this area every year.
That's right, yeah. Now, it may be a nod to Dolly as well.
Yeah, it could be, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been great to bring the murals back, but we also have added a statue in downtown.
Uh-huh. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. We're actually going to see it. It's Birdie, a nice companion for Dolly. But you mentioned the mural right outside Pines, country royalty. A lot of people stop and pose because it's, Chad Atkins, June Carter Cash, Roy Acuff, Archie Campbell, and of course Dolly. But these really have become selfie stops, right?
They have. Yeah, it's been great to see people taking pictures and, tagging downtown Sevierville. So that's certainly helped people find out about us.
So they're posing at these murals, but you better believe people are posing with Dolly. So we want to hear more about the Dolly statue, because hard to believe. I mean, who doesn't love Dolly, right? Everyone loves Dolly. She crosses different generations, just very diverse with her fan following. But the statue was very controversial. Carol McMahon is going to share more about that in a moment, but it was actually illegal, right?
So for 30 years, the Dolly statue was a non-conforming use here in the city of Sevierville.
Dolly was illegal.
Dolly was illegal. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. But we had to change that ordinance, right, to create these other statues and murals here in downtown.
Scandalous. Dolly's scandalous. And that's just part of the story. Carol McMahon shares more on the controversy surrounding the Dolly statue.
There were a group of citizens here that wanted to erect a statue of Dolly Parton, who has long been the favorite daughter in Sevier County, of course. And but they had an idea of putting it up at near Dollywood in Pigeon Forge. But they decided they better ask Dolly, and she immediately said, "Oh, no question, it's got to be on the courthouse yard. That's where I grew up, and I want it on the courthouse yard." So that settled that. But then they had to get permission from the county commission to do it, and that brought on some issues. There had several hurdles they had to go through, and then there were a lot of commissioners that just didn't want a statue of a woman at that time. And this was in the 1980s. So they had, and it was a very close vote, but it all finally happened, and Dolly says of all of the tributes to her, this is her favorite.
And I think it's extra special because another Tennessee treasure designed it, Mr. Jim Gray.
Jim Gray, he decided, and he always said right up until his death that it was his favorite project that he ever worked on.
After all these years, the Dolly statue finally has a companion. If people are driving the square, they're going to see a dog named Birdie.
Right.
Who is Birdie?
Well, Birdie played a part in Sevierville's history as well. Back in the early 1900s, there was a local physician by the name of Dr. Massey who had a bird dog that he named Birdie. And Birdie would take Dr. Massey's bank deposit to the Sevier County Bank every day, get the receipt written up, and bring it back to the doctor. Never failed, and that went on for years. And he was quite a pet for the entire town back in those early times.
Birdie is across the street from Dolly, and I'm sure she would love that companionship, I would think.
Absolutely.
She hasn't seen Birdie.
I'm not for sure. I know that she's, a few months ago she had the chance to eat at the Appalachian, and so she was in downtown. So maybe she did. Maybe she
Did she have frog legs?
I'm not for sure what meal Dolly had that night, but maybe.
Oh, I'm hearing Dolly had shrimp and grits. I know a lot of you are interested to see what she ate at the Appalachian. I can't imagine the conversation with Chef David Rule and Dolly. I bet that was special. We packed a lot into this episode: history, local flavor, and stops you need to visit. We have more stories and videos on our Hollers Hills website, and we'd love for you to share your Smoky Mountain memory when you log on. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.